では、早速ですが最初のご講演にお願いしたいと思います。最初のご講演はプロフェッサーケレハさんでして、エンバイロメントプロテクションエージェンシーアイルランドにある環境保護局から来てくださいました。で簡単ながらですが、ケレハ先生、すいません、ケレハ先生のご紹介をしたいと思います。ケレハ先生は2005年アイルランドダブリン大学大学院でラドン健康影響力学調査を行いまして博士号を取得されました。その後アイルランド環境省の放射線防護局で働かれてしました。2009年からは環境放射線モニタリングの総監督者としてご活躍されています。また放射線測定、放射化学分析、線量評価や海洋のモデリングに関してもご経験がござっていらっしゃいます。現在は欧州委員会アイルランド代表として欧州放射線生態学同盟のメンバーでもおありになられ活躍されています。もちろん福島県内におけるさまざまな放射線汚染、それから生態影響に関しましても IAEA のプロジェクトに参加されて、ご活躍されております。それでは発表していただきます。
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Professors Onda and Sakaguchi for the invitation here today. Hopefully by the end of this presentation you'll get a good idea of what happens at Sellafield and the impact it has on the environment around Sellafield. The site itself is over 70 years old, and a lot of things have happened on the site in the past, and I won't have time to talk about all of it today, but if we have time at the end I'm happy to answer any questions you have on things I haven't addressed. So here is an overview of my presentation. I'm going to start by looking at giving a brief description of Sellafield, the site itself and the discharges from the site over time. I'll discuss the EPA's marine monitoring programme, which is primarily focused on monitoring discharges from Sellafield. I'll give an outline of our measurement techniques that we currently use to measure radioactivity, and then I'll summarise our measurement data and dose assessments over the past 30 or so years. I'll then move on to our marine dispersion modelling, and just to show you how the radioactivity is dispersed in the Irish Sea. And then I'll finish then with just a few slides on a study commissioned by the Irish government looking at potential accidents at Sellafield and the risks to Ireland. And then there'll be one final slide just summarising some key points from the presentation itself. So the Sellafield site itself is located in Cumbria on the northwest coast of England here. And it's a site of approximately 6 kilometres squared, and it employs 10,000 people from the local area. In terms of its relationship to Ireland, you can see on this map here that it's at its closest point 180 kilometres from the northeast coast of Ireland, and this is in a town called Kelleher, which is on the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. And discharges from Sellafield remain the most significant source of artificial radioactivity in the Irish Sea. And although activities at the site produce both aerial discharges and liquid discharges, I'm only going to be talking about the liquid discharges. And this is because the aerial discharges don't have any radiological impact, or routine aerial discharges don't have any radiological impact on the Irish environment, because the prevailing winds in this area travel in a northeasterly direction. So aerial discharges are not our problem, they're Norway's problem. So the principal activities at Sellafield today are the reprocessing of spent nuclear fuel and the storage of spent nuclear fuel. There's also decommissioning of obsolete plants as well. So the site itself opened in the late 1940s. The site was taken over by the UK government for the production of plutonium for nuclear weapons. And there were 2 piles, the Windscale piles, that started operation in 1950. And these produced plutonium for nuclear weapons, and they were shut down in 1957 after a fire at one of these piles. This fire caused the dispersion of an awful lot of radioactivity into the surrounding environment. The site itself is also the site of the first commercial nuclear power plant in the world, called Calder Hall, and this was opened in 1952, I think. and the last of these reactors shut down in 2003. So fuel reprocessing began in 1952 as well, and it continues to this day with 2 fuel reprocessing plants, Thorpe and Magnox, and both of these are due to shut down before the end of this decade. Fuel reprocessing on site gives rise to an awful lot of waste, nuclear waste, and this is classed as high-level waste, intermediate-level waste, and low-level waste. The high-level waste and the intermediate-level waste is stored on-site at Sellafield, and the low-level waste is stored just off-site or discharged into the Irish Sea. So to give you an overview of reprocessing at Sellafield, I'm just going to show you this flow diagram of the thermal oxide reprocessing plant at Thorpe. So spent nuclear fuel is shipped to Sellafield and it's stored in storage ponds for a period of around a year. And after this storage period, it is then broken up into constituent parts. The casing of the fuel is sent as intermediate level waste to a solid waste store here. And the remaining components are then dissolved in hot nitric acid. This is the solvent is then added to this, and this separates out the plutonium and uranium into separate stores here. And what we're left with then is high-level waste, medium activity concentrate, and low-level waste. The high-level waste goes to high-level waste storage tanks for eventual vitrification into glass blocks. The low-level waste goes to discharges into the Irish Sea or into a low-level waste repository. And the medium activity concentrate goes to another plant, EARP, the Enhanced Actinide Removals Plant, where strontium, cesium, americium, plutonium, and now technetium are extracted from the waste, and then it's discharged into the Irish Sea again. So what do these discharges look like? Today, they look like this, or in 2014 they look like this. So in the past, the discharges from Sellafield were a factor of 2 or more times higher than this. In 1952, there was a total, they estimated about 370 terabecquerels were discharged into the Irish Sea from Sellafield, but the magnitude and the composition of these discharges have changed significantly over time. And this is dependent upon the type of fuel being reprocessed, its storage time, and also the type of reprocessing facilities available on site. So to show you what the discharges look like over time, these are the cesium-137 liquid discharges from Sellafield into the Irish Sea. So you can see from the early 1950s up until the late 1960s, the discharges remained relatively low. Then we saw a sharp increase in these discharges. And this is as a result of increased capacity of the plant itself. We then see gradual decline in these discharges, and this is as a result of them stopping the release of water from the cooling ponds and medium activity concentrate into the Irish Sea. We see a sharp decline then in 1985, and this is where they brought online a new plant called the Site Ion Exchange Effluent Plant, and this removed cesium from the liquid discharges. So the discharges today remain relatively low. Similarly, for plutonium and americium, you can see a similar profile throughout the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 1980s. Again, you see a drop in 1985 with the bringing online of the SIXEP plant. But again, in 1995, you see another drop in discharges, and this was when the Enhanced Actinide Removal Plant, or EARP, came online as well. For technetium-99, the discharges profile is slightly different. You can see here the discharges of technetium-99 remained relatively low until 1994-1995. And this again was because of the Enhanced Actinide Removal Plant coming online. When this came online first, it had a large batch of fuels to reprocess or pass through it, and there was a large backlog. And when it came online first, the technetium-99, it wasn't effective at removing technetium-99 from the waste. And so for a period of 10 years, we got this large increase in technetium-99 discharges. You see one large increase here and around here as well. However, in 2005, they added an additional step in this plant, and it was effective at removing technetium-99. So from 2006 onwards, the levels were similar to those before the Enhanced Actinide Removal Plant came online. So how do we monitor all this radioactivity in the Irish Sea? Well, since the late 1970s, the EPA and its predecessors have been monitoring the radioactivity in the Irish Sea. And the primary focus of our marine monitoring program has always been to assess radiation doses arising from Sellafield discharges, and also to determine the geographical and temporal distribution of artificial radionuclides in the marine environment. And we do this through the sampling of seawater, fish, shellfish, seaweed and marine sediment in the Irish Sea and around the Irish coastline as well. And we analyse these for cesium-137, plutonium, americium, tritium and technetium-99. So this map here gives an overview of our current marine monitoring program. You can see, for obvious reasons, most of the monitoring is done in the northeast coast of Ireland. So seawater and sediment samples are taken at Balagan and in the Irish Sea. The seaweed samples are taken at Balagan here, Woodstown down here and Killybegs over here. Fish samples are collected from the major fishing ports around Ireland. Clogher Head, the fish landed here is caught in the Irish Sea. In Kilmore Quay here, fish is caught in the Celtic Sea here. And Killybegs, where fish landed here, is caught in the northeast Atlantic. So the sort of analytical techniques we carry out are summarised here. So for radiocesium in biota, seaweed and sediments, this is our most straightforward process. It's just direct gamma spectrometry after drying and homogenisation. For cesium in seawater, we use extraction of the cesium using commercially available AMP pan resin, followed by gamma spectrometry in a high purity well detector. Actinized analysis, we do sequential extraction of plutonium and americium using extraction chromatography, followed by alpha spectrometry. And for technetium, we currently outsource this analysis, and it's analysed by ICP events. In the past, we analysed this in-house using gas flow proportional counting. So these analytical techniques are constantly under review to ensure that they're fit for purpose. And another key point is that in the event of an emergency, we want to analyse your samples very quickly. And so we're always looking for ways to improve these analyses. In 2011, we updated our actinized analysis, and I'm just going to give you an overview of this now. So this flow chart here gives an overview of our actinide analysis. Our environmental sample, which would be fish, shellfish, or sediment samples, after drying homogenization, they're dissolved in 8 molar nitric acid after some precipitations. We then pass this dissolved sample through a TVIP column and a DGA column sequentially. The plutonium is retained on the TVIP column, the americium on the DGA, and we separate these two, and then we can elute the plutonium after purification onto a disc, and electrodeposited onto a disc, and then counted by alpha spectrometry. The americium is retained on the DGA. We can elute this then, and this undergoes an additional purification step before electrodeposition again onto a disc and counting by alpha spectrometry. So these spectra here are alpha spectra from a sediment sample taken on the northeast coast of Ireland. So you can see the plutonium along with its tracers here, and americium along with its tracer here as well. So this is technique here. It does look fairly complex, but in the event of an emergency, we would be able to analyse 8 to 10 sediment samples in a 24-hour period, where we could get the radiochemistry done during the working day and then count the samples overnight. So we're always looking for rapid assessment techniques in the event of a nuclear emergency. So I'm just going to show you now some of the results of our marine monitoring over the years. For cesium-137 in seawater, you can see that there's been a gradual decline in cesium-137 activity in seawater from 1993 up to about the year 2000, and then it tends to level off a bit here. So this is in line with the decrease in discharges of cesium from Sellafield. This levelling off here is mainly related to the remobilisation of cesium-137 from the sediments, the marine sediments in the Irish Sea. So we don't expect this to decrease significantly in the future. So typically the activity concentrations are in and around 10 millibecquerels per litre. For our biota, this is 2013, you can see that cesium-137 is detectable in all our biota types. Technetium-99 is detectable in shellfish and in seaweed. And seaweed is a good bioindicator of technetium-99 in the marine environment. And lobster is also known to bioaccumulate technetium-99 as well. For plutonium and americium, they're detectable in shellfish, and this is because these are bottom feeders or filter feeders in the Irish Sea. Looking at technetium-99 in seaweed over time, you can see that the levels were relatively low until the mid-1990s, and then we see a large increase in the activity concentrations in seaweed. This is approximately 5 years after peak discharges of technetium-99 from Sellafield, and then another slight increase around 2005, which could be correlated to the peak discharges in 2005. But now, thankfully, these activity concentrations have returned to pre-1994 levels. So I had the opportunity last year of taking seaweed and sediment samples off the coast of Fukushima, and you can see here how the results compare for cesium-137, 134 and plutonium. So the cesium-137 activity concentrations in the Eastern Irish Sea are comparable to those in Fukushima. However, the plutonium activity concentrations in the Irish Sea are significantly higher than those off the coast of Fukushima. So what does this mean in terms of dose to the Irish population? So you can see here we've been estimating the dose to consumers of fish, or consumers of fish and shellfish caught in the Irish Sea. These are members of the Irish population. You can see that there's been a gradual decline in the dose to the Irish population over the last 30 years or so. It's only a tiny fraction of what it was back in 1982. And compared to the overall dose typical members of the Irish public receive, it's, well, pretty much insignificant. The majority of the dose is from the exposure to radon and boron gas here. I should say as well that this is the artificial radioactivity in the Irish Sea. The actual dose from polonium-210 in fish and shellfish is probably about 30 microsieverts a year. So it's insignificant even compared to the natural radioactivity in the Irish Sea. So we'll move on to marine dispersion modelling. The increase in discharges of technetium-99 from Sellafield allowed us to model the dispersion of radioactivity from Sellafield. As technetium-99 is a very conservative radionuclide, it remains in the water column and has an exceptionally long half-life. And so we modelled these distributions from Sellafield in order to look at the distribution of radioactivity along the east coast of Ireland, examine seasonal and interannual circulation patterns, and then to look at the effects of meteorological conditions on the migration pattern itself. And we did this using a three-dimensional hydrodynamic model based on the Princeton Oceanographic Model. And this model was developed by the National University of Ireland. The model divides the Irish Sea into 110 by 147 4-kilometre grid squares. And we model the three-dimensional currents, tides, and winds using a North Atlantic model for tides. We take temperature and salinity from a Max Planck Institute model, and the meteorological data for the time period of interest is taken from the European Centre for Medium Range Forecasting. So we validated this model using technetium-99 in seawater measurements taken in the Irish Sea from 1993 up until 1999. So you probably can't see very well here, but these are the seawater measurements, and these are the activity concentrations estimated by the model. And you can see there's relatively good agreement. So you can see around here 100, 200 millibecquerels per litre, and here it's similar. Looking at this at a single measurement point on the east coast of Ireland. So these are our measurement data from this side here, and this is the model predictions in black. And you can see that there's relatively good agreement with perhaps a slight time lag in the modelling itself. So using this model, once it's validated, we could look at the seasonal circulation in the Irish Sea. So in winter time, we see a strong northward flow of technetium-99 along the Scottish coast and out through the North Channel, and the east coast of Ireland remains largely unaffected. In the springtime, as the sea surface temperature increases, a southward flow develops in April, and it gradually becomes stronger. And what happens then, the currents affect the flume down the Irish coastline. So what happens here was, with the increasing sea surface temperature, is we get a gyre formed in an anti-clockwise direction just east of this island here called the Isle of Man, and this pulls the dispersed radioactivity down the east coast of Ireland. So in the summer months, as the sea surface temperature increases, this gets stronger. And then in autumn time, as the sea surface temperature decreases again, the gyre collapses and the northern flow develops again and increases in strength. So the timing of the dispersion from Sellafield is a key factor in whether it's going to end up on the east coast of Ireland. And we have been modelling in the summer months, and we've seen that from discharge to Sellafield to the east coast of Ireland, it could take as little as 28 days to reach us. So this plot here shows the influence of the gyre on our modelling and measurements as well. So this green graph here is the sea surface temperature, which correlates well to the formation of the gyre in the Irish Sea. And you can see as the sea surface temperature increases, we also see an increase in technetium-99 activity concentrations in the Irish Sea. I'm just going to finish now by looking at a study commissioned by the Irish government in 2006. So they commissioned the study to the Irish government commissioned an assessment by a team of international independent experts to determine potential risks to Ireland associated with Sellafield. So the questions they asked were: what types of incidents would cause damage that would release radioactive materials? What is the likelihood of these incidents, and what are the consequences to Ireland? So these independent experts used a probabilistic risk assessment to do this. And what is a probabilistic risk assessment? Well, probabilistic risk assessment takes into consideration everything on this slide here, and through the combination of numerical modelling, calculations and expert judgment, they're able to determine what sort of accidents would be likely to happen at Sellafield and the chances of these accidents actually happening. So this study took a significant amount of time, as there was a lot of talk between the Irish and UK governments to try get the experts access to the Sellafield site. Once they did get access to the site, they were able to talk to the staff on site, gain access to the safety information of the site as well. And 2011 they were able to publish the results of their findings. So this summarises the results of the probabilistic risk assessment. They graded the results using a traffic light system, where green would have little or no impact in Ireland and red would have significant impact in Ireland. So I suppose the key point to note here is that for all of these incidents outlined in the probabilistic risk assessment, none of them would have any observable health effects on the people, the Irish people, although this one here would have health effects on people in the UK. But for the one in red here, it would have a significant socio-economic impact on the Irish economy, and this would be as a result of a perception of contamination of our foodstuffs. That's our agricultural produce and our fish and shellfish. So currently the food industry in Ireland is worth about €25 billion to the Irish economy. So some sort of incident like this would have a significant impact on our economy. But luckily, if you look at the risk or the likelihood of these actually happening, it ranges from very low to extremely unlikely. So I'll just finish up with one more slide just summarising this presentation. So discharges from Sellafield remain the most significant source of artificial radioactivity in the Irish marine environment. Current discharges are significantly lower than those in the past, and remobilisation of radionuclides from sediments are now a significant source of radioactivity compared to the discharges from Sellafield. The dose of the Irish population arising from discharges are very low, and the spatial and temporal distribution of radioactivity in the Irish Sea is well known. Finally, any incident in Sellafield would have no observable health impacts on the Irish population, but could have a socio-economic impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce your lecture title.
That's okay.
すみませんでした。タイトルもご紹介せずに発表していただいてしまい申し訳ありません。緊張しておりました。それではディスカッションの時間となりましたので、何かご質問、それからまだありましたらお願いします。はい、こんな点。
じゃあ日本語で皆さんできれば日本語で聞いていただいた方がセシウムの流出を見ますと1973年に5ペタベクレル5000テラベクレル
Terabecquerels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
なのですが、
Yes.
そうするとその原子力の測定海水中のデータですね。1993年の話題から、出ていますが、それの、濃度がソースの、量がですね、大体500倍ぐらいだったんです。1993年に比べると。そうすると海水の濃度がその時500倍ぐらいあったわけですよ。例えば10ベクレルパーリッターみたいな。
In 1993?
1977年、最も、セラフィールドからの認識が多かった。
Yes. So you're asking whether the seawater activity concentration in the 70s was at what level?
はい、はい、そうです。はい。
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Well, for the seawater activity concentrations back in the 1970s, I would have to check, but I can find that out for you.
そうなると放出量から考えると、当時はもうちょっとその生物も、高いですね、予想されるわけですが、その場合も500倍とかそれなりの。
Yeah.
はい、野敷先生、このこと手を挙げてらっしゃいます。お願いします。
Sellafield is known as one of the biggest leakage into the ocean in the literature. Maybe it was we understand the total is 41 petabytes. So very good. We were sure.
Yes.
And the fundamental question is the accident originally occurred for the coal, the graphite reactor.
Yes.
And whether it's a type of accident when which is not cool down and very heat. And why that kind of the accident induce such a long-term leakage in the after the accident, and then what kind of incident happened during the summer? Like Professor also just asked why the leakage into the sea ocean occurred, not immediately, but it lasts very long time. And did you have any kind of decommissioning of the reactor in this video, and that increase the amount of leakage, or do you have some reason why? I don't know if you have those information from higher.
So you're talking about the increase in discharges here. Well, this is as a result of pretty much the Magnox reactor Magnox reprocessing facility coming online. So before that, the processing was relatively low, but as soon as the Magnox plant was commissioned, the discharges shot up, and they would have remained high if they hadn't halted the discharges of the medium activity concentrate and cooling pond water into the Irish Sea.
That is operational.
Yes, yeah.
何かありますでしょうか。先生、お願いします。
When you look at the depletion data, the liquid discharge,
Yes.
and also the depletion of the seaweed, it looks like the peak of discharge occurred in 1995.
Yes.
Where in the seaweed, the peak occurred around 2000.
Yes.
That does mean a time log or delay of accumulation occurred. Any comment on this? number?
Well, this is just what we measured in the IRC. We didn't see any. Well, we saw a slight decrease over time, but you have to remember this is Balbriggan. This is on the east coast of Ireland, just north of Dublin. So it probably took a bit longer for the ingrowth of technetium and the bioaccumulation at this point.
I mean the distance in the sea.
The distance probably would have been 220 kilometres from the Sellafield point itself. But again, you have to remember that the majority of the technetium was going out through the North Sea. It was only in the summer months that it was taken down the east coast of Ireland. So it probably took slightly longer. So it was only really the summer months when it was bioaccumulating the technetium-99.
ちょっと2つあるんですけども、今のシーウッドに関するところなんですが、セディメントが今の現状のソースになっているということなんですが、そのセディメントは基本的にはシーウィードから来ているのか、それとも過去の粒子状物質の排出によるのかっていうのをなんか解明されているのかっていうのが1点、もう一つは70年代にシーフード経由でそのアイルランドの方の、ドーズっていうか暴露量とかなんか推計されているデータとかあるのかを教えていただきます。
Okay, to answer your first question, the sediment measurements were made in the Irish Sea, so it wasn't from seaweed, it was from the sediment itself. It was remobilization of the cesium from the sediment itself in the Irish Sea. And the second one is our dose assessments only began in the 1980s, so we have no estimate of the dose to the Irish population. But the UK have been doing it before that, and I think they were probably talking about 30 microsieverts in the UK. So, okay.
I mean, sediment means particle, matter.
Oh yes.
As for first question.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, probably his question is. すみません。Sorry, just I probably misunderstood. The sediment means particle. I mean,
Yeah.
suspended particle.
Oh, it's just, yeah, from the sediment. It was
Not decomposition of seaweed.
no, it was resuspension from the sediment on the
When it
seabed.
comes from the particle discharges by public
あ、すみません。マイク他にないですから。これのなんかまた別みたいな。それちょっと違う。すみません。お願いします。
それじゃあ日本語で、そのセディメントに行っているパーティクルは基本的にその施設から放出された粒子という理解でよろしいですか？
Yeah.
他にありますでしょうか。はい、山本さん。
非常に面白い話ありがとうございました。確かに1970年代に大量の放出があり、いろんな処理の能力も上がって劇的に人間の放出量というのは下がっているとは言ってるんですけれども、このアイリシ海というのは全体の放射能というのはどのようになっているか。例えばそのアイリシ海全体の放射能が半分になるのにどれぐらいの時間が例えばかかるというようなことを言いますか。
Hello. The short answer is I don't know.
例えばね、こういうふうな感じでモニターになさっていますけども、この将来を見たときにどんな研究がさらに必要であるとお考えでしょうか。
I think in terms of our research, we're primarily focused on dose assessments of the Irish population, and these doses are mainly from plutonium, americium and cesium-137, and we don't really expect these levels to decrease into the future significantly, especially the plutonium, the actinides, plutonium and americium. We may see a slight decrease in the cesium-137, but not in plutonium and americium. So we will continue to monitor them into the future.
Thank you for the nice talk. I have a question. You mentioned remobilization of cesium from the sediments.
Yeah.
Can you speak about that a little bit? Is that a physical process or a chemical process, or perhaps a combination?
It's really to do with, it's a physical process. It's bioturbation. It's either animals burrowing down, releasing the sediments into the soil, or it's storms in the Irish Sea mainly. So you have, well, I suppose I can't really show you. You see here, I'll get a map of Ireland. Oh, wrong way. So in the Irish Sea, you've got two large mud banks, and a lot of, well, I'd say, majority of the plutonium and americium has ended up here, and mud banks here, and this area here is relatively shallow. So because of like storms in the Irish Sea and high winds, you do get resuspension of sediments into the Irish Sea that do remobilise the cesium and the plutonium and americium and cause it to transfer down the Irish coastline in the summer months. So, yeah.
はい、ありがとうございます。他にありますでしょうか。はい、じゃあ青の席でお願いします。
大変な貴重な講演ありがとうございました。2014年の液体の放出量の中でストロンチウム90の濃度のセシウムと同じレベルの濃度が放出されています。しかし海産物の濃度のテーブルの中にはストロンチウム90の濃度がありません。また、占領評価の中にローズアセスメントの中にもストロンチウムが90が含まれていませんが、こういったところでのストロンチウム90の、占める割合はどのようにお考えになっているんでしょうか。
Well, we don't actually monitor strontium 90 in fish and shellfish in the Irish Sea. It's really cesium and plutonium we're interested in. But we do monitor strontium 90 in food samples and diet samples. So we do take food samples from milk processing plants around the country itself, and but the limited the activity concentrations we measure in food samples are always below the limits to detection. So we don't detect strontium 90 in our food monitoring programs.
ありがとうございます。他にありますでしょうか。はい、青野先生お願いします。
ですね、1970年代にこだわるんですが、これだけセシウム等がセラフィールドから流れてきたということは、イギリス政府からアイルランドの連絡とかがあった。
No. I suppose in terms of dialogue between the Irish and UK governments, there was very little or none up until probably about 1999 or 2000, when the Irish government actually tried to prosecute the UK government under, I think, international seas conventions, and it was only then dialogue really opened between the two, and it was the first time anybody from Ireland got proper access to the Sellafield site. Before that we didn't have any access. So. But the relationships are pretty good now. we meet with the nuclear regulator in the UK on an annual basis, and the Environment Agency over there, and the Northern Ireland Environment Agency, so yeah.
他にありますでしょうか。それでは後で 総合討論もありますので、これでケビン先生のご講演、すみません、ケレハ先生のご講演を終わりにしたいと思います。ありがとうございます。